Hello, one and all. It's my reaction, view, and cut kind of video of Arifureta Season 2, Episode 10. And I am definitely excited for this episode. The big ultimate battle, Hajime versus Noint. Hajime versus a freaking angel of the Lord. Oh, this is gonna be fun. I mean, this really is one of the best fights in the entire series. Certainly the best fight, at least this volume. And I really am just hoping this episode takes time to really show all the amazing moments from this fight. I really don't want them to rush it, but I'm not too concerned about that because we do still have 2 episodes left after this. And I feel like, they can devote this episode fully to just this one battle. Next week can be, Hajime's classmates, the monster army, the demon army, dealing with all of that. And the final episode can just be, the epilogue of the series. So for this episode, for this week, let's just entirely focus on Hajime versus Noint. As well as what his sensei's doing here, because, oh god, I love it. I so love it. This is the moment where Aiko became one of my favorite characters in this series. Which is really saying something because so many characters in this series are my favorite characters in this series. A lot of lovable characters. A lot of lovable characters. Alright, but let's into this starting in 3, 2, 1. Episode 10, God's Apostle, as you hear dramatic drumming in the background. Yeah, this wasn't really given too much focus last episode, but currently Pope Ishtar, all the bishops, all the knights are all singing the Hymn of Ruin, which is weakening Hajime and just making it so much harder for him to fight against Noint. So what Tio wants to do is drop Aiko back down the kingdom where it's safe. I mean, it's not really safe in the kingdom right now, but yeah, I'm not really sure where it would be safe to drop her off, but drop her off somewhere, and then come back and murder all of those geezers, wipe out every last member of the church. Unfortunately, that would take a very long time, and Hajime's battle is moving rather quickly, so Aiko realizes, they can't wait that long. She needs to figure out some way, somehow, to help save Hajime, to help save the student that she loves. That is actually true. Her magic stats are basically on the same level as Koki, the legendary hero. Which, I mean, doesn't mean all that much to Hajime, whose stats are 10 times more than Koki's. Actually, I think that might be even more than 10 times higher than his, but either way, it doesn't mean a whole lot to Hajime. But by the ranks of this world, Aiko is an incredibly powerful person. Unfortunately, she doesn't actually possess any sort of attack magic, so she really can't use that magic stat all that much. That's the reason why she doesn't go with her students into battle, because she can't actually aid them in the fighting. Yeah, that's another thing. She doesn't actually have any magic circles right now, so she can't cast magic, and her solution to this was to make herself bleed, to cut herself, and form magic circles out of her own blood. That is how determined she is to protect her students. Oh, I love this girl. That is actually a rather well-drawn magic circle, considering, she's literally drawing it on her hand in her own blood. She has more artistic skill than I would have guessed. I love this scene. What I really love is in the light novel, it actually says, Aiko resolved herself to never let someone else pull the trigger for her again. Oh, I love that line. I so love that line. Because let's not forget, back in Lake Hajime was Hajime chose to shoot his classmate for the sake of Aiko, because he knew that she couldn't accept blaming herself for her student's death, so he took the burden upon himself. He bloodied his own hands, even though he knew it might lead to his teacher hating him for the rest of his life. And Aiko just feels so guilty over all of that entire situation. Her student being shot because of her. So this time, she's not going to turn away. This time she's not going to blink. She's going to do what she needs to do to protect her students, to protect Hajime, and make sure they all get back to Japan as quickly and safely as possible, even if it means bloodying her own hands. Oh, also, I want to mention, in the light novel, Tio refers to Aiko as Sensei Dono. Oh, I love that detail. I absolutely freaking love that detail. She is using a variation of Limit Break, and an important detail in light novel is that during this entire fight, Noint's mana reserves never go down at all. She has a crystal in her chest, where her heart should be, that is providing her with a limitless amount of mana, and as a result, she can keep fighting essentially indefinitely. which makes things very, very dangerous for Hajime, who has an actual physical limit, and also has a limit on the amount of bullets he's brought into this battle. Though he also has a machine gun that fires like 100 bullets a second, so yeah, there's that too. I'd say they're fairly evenly matched. Dang, cutting right through the barrel of the gun. That is terrifying. Very, very terrifying. Oh yeah, Hajime actually was currently in the process of charging that up with his lightning powers, so all that energy had to go somewhere, and it self-destructed. Though I should also mention that every weapon Hajime creates actually has a self-destruct feature built into it. That is Hajime's pride as a craftsman. Okay, now Hajime has gotten serious. He's activated his own limit break skill, which boosts his stats, I think, like 3 times. So he is way, way more deadly right now. But he also has, a limit. He can only stay in this form for a few minutes at a time, and then afterwards he will be completely and utterly exhausted. Meanwhile, Noit seems to have no such limit, so Hajime needs to finish off this fight as quickly as he can. A really great detail here in Light Novel is that Noit only hears 2 gunshots, but her sword gets hit by 12 bullets. Hajime is so precise in his firing and so rapid in his firing that even though she only heard a single gunshot, he actually fired 6 times with each gun. Which just seems so utterly and completely impossible, but also amazing. You should do something really, really insane. That is my advice, Hajime. And don't worry, he will. Yep, like I said, something really, really insane. Because he is completely in the range of those attacks. And if they, fire all at once, they're going to do quite a bit of damage to him as well as her. Yeah, the light novel here describes Hajime coughing up blood and dealing with damage to his organs, all for the sake of dealing just a little bit more damage to Noit, and mostly to her swords. Though she seemed way more angry in the light novel, like seriously shocked and screaming, "Are you out of your goddamn mind?" Or at least that's how I imagined it. Wow, that is one way to put it, Hajime. I wouldn't try to pull a suicide move on you unless you were as hot as my girlfriend. I love it, I love it. Ooh, a chakram. The light novel described this as a small donut-shaped device about the size of a playing card. Which seems to have done absolutely nothing to Noit, but just wait a second. These are some of the coolest weapons in Hajime's arsenal. Yep, they are imbued with space magic, which allows Hajime to shoot into 2 of them by his side and have them redirected right to Noit. In fact, the light novel even says Hajime took into every consideration exactly how she'd move, how she'd deflect them, and they're made of spirit stone just like his crossbits, so Hajime can freely control them basically from anywhere. There we go! The swords broke, and for the first time in this fight, Noit seems truly worried, truly concerned. I love it. Yeah, Hajime managed to do this basically by firing at the same spot over and over and over again. Even while he was in the middle of this giant, heavy, epic battle, he still kept firing at the same spot every single time. And as a result, he was finally able to work his way through the blades and shatter them. And now here come the bolas, which seems a little bit too... Hajime, that's a bit iffy right there. A bit iffy. But these things are also controlled with spirit stones, so Hajime can freely control them as well. And they're imbued with space magic, so they aren't going anywhere. They are locked in place. I mean, Noit can actually use her wings to dissolve them, degrade them, destroy them rather quickly, but all Hajime was trying to do was buy a few seconds for his big, final, ultimate attack. Yeah, I'm sorry, Noit, but your wings won't do all that much against a mother-freaking pile driver. Especially this pile driver, because Hajime has seriously upgraded this thing since the last time he used it. Remember that whole void fissure spell that Fried used last episode to literally explode space? Hajime imbued that spell into the rod of his pile driver to make it vibrate at ridiculous speeds, which allow him to penetrate any defense. And what's more, he applied gravity magic to it so that the rod now weighs 20 tons. Nothing in the world can guard against an attack like this. Spoiler alert, she cannot. Oh, that was beautiful. That was so beautiful. Her wing literally flew off her body as the pile driver flew through her chest and utterly and completely killed her. Oh, I love that. And again, just the look of shock on her face as she realizes, wait a minute, I've just been killed. I did not see that coming. Okay, that's not really her heart where the crystal was supposed to be, but I guess that makes sense. I mean, having her chest area get impaled would be a bit too graphic even for this anime. Something I find so beautiful about a one-winged angel. Though that is still fairly gruesome. You can see her meat organs inside bleeding out. I mean, the wound itself has actually been cauterized because the pile driver was literally being powered by lightning. Yes, you were killed by an irregular. And thus the angel falls from the sky. For the record, in the light novel, Hajime actually planned on going down there and shooting her in the head a whole bunch just to make really sure she was dead. Even though all senses said, yes, she is dead, Hajime wanted to be certain because, you know, that's how utterly dangerous she was. And it was only because of this giant explosion that he became distracted and decided to go see what was going on over there. Which, I don't know. I'm kind of bothered by the timing of this because this explosion and the one who caused it, obviously Aiko and Tio, I feel like it would have been more relevant, more helpful if this happened in the middle of his fight against Noit. Like, oh, they did this, they caused the explosion, and as a result, Hajime's strength returned to him, and he was able to turn the tides and take out Noit. Yay! I mean, it would have been less, you know, oh, awesome, MC is so powerful and strong, he beat the enemy with no problem, but I still think, you know, timing-wise, it would have worked so much better. Oh dear. I love you, Hajime. I freaking love you. I mean, light novel, he was just, you know, at least a little bit concerned about that massive explosion. Here he's like, oh dear, wonder what that was. Not a care in the goddamn world. Also, in the light novel, the explosion was much more massive, as nothing was left even recognizable of the cathedral. They couldn't even tell where the church had been. That is how utterly obliterated it was. Aiko, what did you do? Oh, I love this teacher. I absolutely freaking love this teacher. Yes, that is how massive this explosion was. Even Tio thought it would kill her. Even though Tio was the one actually firing the breath attack, she wasn't actually sure if she'd survive it. That is how utterly terrifying this spell really was. That is a disturbing comment. That is a disturbing comment. I mean, in the light novel, Tio basically says, I should have expected as much destructive power from the one that taught you, from the master's teacher. Oh, I love it. Oh god, just the destruction. I absolutely love the destruction here. Yeah, like I said before, Aiko doesn't have any offensive spells, but she does have the skill Fermentation Acceleration, which obviously accelerates the fermentation of organic matter. And while this world isn't Earth, when organic matter ferments, it still produces a methane-like substance, which, if set on fire, will explode. And because the spell wasn't considered offensive, the barrier wasn't blocking it, and therefore Aiko was able to ferment basically every organic material inside the church, and Tio was able to use some wind magic to keep it from escaping the church. And then when Tio, launched her fire attack at the methane gas, it went boom. It went really, really big boom. And as a result, Aiko just killed so very, very many dozens or hundreds of people, including the Pope. Aiko murdered the Pope. I mean, technically, Tio was the one who used the breath attack, but I'd say they deserve shared credit. They deserve shared credit for murdering the Pope. That is not a great thing. Seriously, having Tio compliment Aiko like this is really not helping with her mood right now. I mean, it is methane gas, and you are a teacher. I think you should know what happens when you light methane gas on fire. Oh, they dead. They are all dead. Yeah, Aiko hasn't really put two and two together at this point. Right now, she just thinks that she blew up a church. She doesn't realize, wait a second, weren't there people inside the church I was trying to stop? What happened to them? Are they okay? Do they need some healing magic? No, Aiko, you have murdered every last one of them. You are a killer among the highest order right now. Oh god, just the casual way he said that is... Oh, so Hajime. Yeah, Aiko though, she is not Hajime. She can't really deal with the whole, okay, I just murdered people thing, and it is currently breaking her mind. Yeah, she is not doing all that well right now. In fact, in the light novel, she vomited. When she realized what she did, she vomited, which was particularly embarrassing because she was still on Tio's back in that moment, so she basically just vomited on Tio. And while Tio may be a pervert, even that was way too much for her. God. Oh god, Hajime, that is... Really, by this point, I feel like you're the one leading her on. I mean, in a light novel, he just gently touched her hand, hoping a little bit of human warmth could help her get through this difficult moment, but here he's fully embracing her. Also, in the light novel, Hajime actually realized, wait a second, the way she's looking at me, I feel like I've seen that before. Oh yeah, it's the way that Yui looks at me, and Shia, and Tio, and Kaori, and Remiya. Oh dang, my sensei is in love with me. How the freak did this happen? After, he put her in his arms like that. Yeah, really shouldn't be any surprise to Hajime that his teachers fall in love with him. And now they're dealing with a ghost. Oh no! That is actually really impressive. I think in the light novel, it was just like a hole in the wall, like a cave they had to walk into, but here it's actually the magic circle that was buried under all that rubble. Seriously, all the rubble flying into the air, that is very visually impressive. And yay, they cleared the labyrinth, they made it to the end! Huzzah! I mean, I think we can all agree this is probably the most difficult labyrinth out of all of them! Yeah, but because Hajime actually managed to, kill someone who was under the influence of God, he was basically able to skip over most of the labyrinth, most of the trials and challenges and all that, and just went right to the, end of it. Just teleported right to the very last room where he was able to have his mind read and was given the latest ancient magic. Good for him! Yeah, Aiko isn't actually used to anyone reading her mind, so this is a very unpleasant experience. And this probe is actually way deeper than the other ones because it's looking for 3 very specific requirements. First off, they need to have finished 2 labyrinths of 4. Secondly, they need to have disavowed this world's gods. And thirdly, they need to have killed someone who was under the influence of God, which is a very, very difficult list of requirements, though all 3 of them have managed to finish checkpoint 2 and 3. They have disavowed this world's gods. I mean, Hajime never actually believed in the god. Tio has been at war with the gods ever since they killed their parents, and while Aiko never really formally disavowed the gods, she's always been more focused on her students and their safety rather than fighting for the will of God. Third requirement, killing someone under God's influence. For Hajime, he killed Noint. For Aiko and Tio, they killed the Pope and all the bishops, all people under the influence of God. The first requirement, though, having cleared 2 labyrinths, I mean, only Hajime's actually really done that, so I'm not really sure why the other 2 got a free pass. Tio, I think Tio's only actually cleared 1 labyrinth. I mean, she went through the volcano labyrinth with Hajime, Yui, and Shia, but she didn't actually clear it. She didn't actually make it to the final room to get the ancient magic from it. And Aiko's cleared 0 labyrinths. I don't even think she's ever actually been in a labyrinth before now, so yeah, I'm not really sure why they made an exception for her. I guess it's because, she literally blew up the church, killed the Pope, and so many religious people. That was enough for the Liberator. That was enough for him to decide that she was a true enemy of God. Oh yeah, and this is the new magic they got. Spirit magic. Magic allows them to control a person's own soul. incredibly powerful, incredibly broken. There's also the magic that Milady, the person from the second labyrinth, used to move her soul into a golem. She literally used the magic to control her soul, rip out of her body, and then put it inside of a new body, the golem. It is, in a sense, magic that can make you immortal. If you just keep moving your soul to another body after another body after another body, then you can live essentially for as long as you want, assuming you aren't killed before you can transfer to another host. Defeat some effect powered by the force of God. That feels like a really bad translation. I mean, from the light novel it said, defeat someone who's under the influence of God, which makes way more sense than this. Okay, so that actually does make a bit more sense. So maybe what that's saying is that those three conditions are needed for the guide to the labyrinth to appear. And because Hajime had cleared all three of them, the guide appeared and allowed them to enter the labyrinth. And then afterwards they were judged to be, an enemy of God and allowed to pass. That is kind of the whole point of Hajime's journey, to find magic that can bring them back to Japan. Especially because it seems like it's really, really unlikely that the gods will decide to, change their minds and send Hajime back. So instead, they need to carve out a path for themselves. Oh yeah, let's not forget there is actually kind of a war going on, back down in the capital, demon army, monster army, whole lot of stuff going on wrong there. And Hajime doesn't actually care at all about the castle being under attack, the capital being under attack, or his classmates being under attack, but, for Aiko-sensei and for Kaori's sake, he's gonna go in and make sure everything's okay. Spoiler alert, it is not. Let's not forget there are all those soldiers suddenly turned hollowed, who have lost all their emotions and just seem so distant and vacant, and seem to be under the influence of whoever it is that Hajime is working for. Oh no! Alright, so we still have, good 8 minutes left of this episode. Wow, that first half went by very quickly. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. I mean, I think I have a fairly good idea of where this episode is going to end right now. And it is going to be a cliffhanger, that's for sure. Oh, this will be fun. God, this is why I love Shizuku so much. She is already there. She's out of bed, her sword is drawn, she's ready for a fight as soon as she heard the explosion. Koki's not even out of bed, Ryu's not even out of bed, most of the classmates aren't even awake yet. In fact, Shizuku actually needs to go into a few of the classmates' rooms and basically beat them to get them out of bed. Oh, this girl is so perfect, and the classmates do not deserve her at all. Again, she is like the only person in the hallway, the only one who actually heard the explosion and decided to get out of bed and do something about it. Those three are the Aiko Defense Force. They're in charge of guarding Aiko. So while they aren't, at the same level as the other classmates who are fighting in the labyrinth, they're also, fairly strong, fairly well-trained. So it makes sense they'd be the next people up after Shizuku. Though again, I need to point out that Koki is still not out of bed. God, this dude's an idiot. This dude is an absolute and complete freaking idiot. He heard a giant, massive explosion, and not only is he not dressed yet, he's still wearing his, sleeping shirt, he's not in his armor or anything, doesn't have his sword on him, but he opened the door without even asking who it was, without even checking if there was an enemy on the other side of the door. God above, this man's stupidity irritates me to no end. How could there be anyone suspicious in the palace? You mean the royal palace where a whole bunch of soldiers have been acting really suspicious the last couple days? And the royal palace where you just heard a giant, massive explosion coming from outside? Yes, that very same royal palace. And yet you're completely incapable of imagining there's something suspicious going on inside the royal palace. You are a moron and you deserve to die. Ryu is also an idiot, but everybody knows he's an idiot, so I don't really mind that all that much. And at last, he is finally dressed. And like I said before, Shizuku actually had to force a lot of these people out of bed. That's because there are technically 3 groups in the classmates. There are the labyrinth exploring classmates, like Koki, like Endo, like Hayama, like Shizuku, like Suzu, like all them. And there's also the Aiko Defense Force, the students who aren't really all that willing to go back in the labyrinth the rest of their lives there, but who are still training and trying their best every day to get strong enough to protect Aiko. But then there's the rest of the students who are, Basically completely and utterly useless. Essentially, after Hajime first fell into the labyrinth and died, they were all so stricken with trauma and fear that they haven't been able to fight since, and they basically spend every single day inside their rooms, staring at a wall and hoping that someday, somehow, they'll be able to go back to Japan. A lot of the students fall into that third category, and as a result, they really aren't all that well battle trained. Yeah, that is Nia, Shizuku's private maid. I'm not sure if she actually appeared in season 1, I can't really remember at this point, but there was a great scene in the light novel, at least, in the first half of the series, first few volumes of the series, where all the classmates who, aren't on the Labyrinth team are talking about how amazing Shizuku is, and how she's exceptional, and how she's the best, and how she has no worries. And Nia basically has to step in and say that Shizuku is just a teenage girl. She's, has to do everything the rest of them are doing, while also putting on this air of being perfect, while also making sure that nobody is worried about her because she needs to worry about everyone else. She needs to make sure that everyone else is okay, and that burden is just completely and utterly crushing her. Oh, come on, Shizuku. You are not an idiot. You are a fairly smart person. You should be able to see what is going on here. It was not this obvious in the light novel. It really wasn't. Yeah, in the light novel, before Eri actually interjects and suggests they go find Captain Meld first, Koki tries to rally the students to fight, and like I said, the third group, the non-fighting group, are really, really reluctant to go with him into battle because, like I said, they have absolutely no battle training besides the first few days, and they would just die. They would very, very quickly die. Plus, they are still dealing with the whole PTSD thing, so yeah, they would not be all that useful. That is a lot of demons. That is a lot of demons. Or monsters. Yeah, this hasn't really been mentioned all that much in the anime, but Eri and Suzu, they are absolutely best friends. Best friends in the whole wide world. They are inseparable. And Suzu thinks that Eri's glasses make her smart. Oh, Suzu's fun. Yeah, Suzu is basically the class clown, the cheerleader of the classmates. She's, the joker. She makes everyone laugh and smile and forget their woes, even as they're about to face a giant army of monsters. Bad idea. Very bad idea. Come on, people, seriously. You should be able to tell there is something really wrong going on here. I mean, there's a giant army of monsters outside, and not one of these soldiers seems the least bit worried or concerned or frantic. They are not that well trained, I can guarantee that. Yep, this is how it's gonna happen. This is how it's gonna happen. Oh well, let's let the world go down in flames, I suppose. That is actually different. In the light novel, they somehow managed to separate all the students and get them surrounded by knights, so they didn't see the surprise attack coming, but a giant flashbang, that works too. That is fairly effective. Oh, more than a flashbang apparently. It's literally sending them to the ground, to their knees. Wow, very effective, very powerful. Oh, I hear some stabbing going on. I hear some stabbing going on in the background. Great, now everybody's dead. Are you happy? I mean, kinda. I don't really like the classmates all that much. I like her. I like, Yuka's her name? Yeah, I like her. And I like Shizuku. And I kinda like Suzu. The rest, not so much. I do like seeing Koki on the ground like that, though. I mean, he definitely deserves stuff for at least a little bit. Dang, Endo is really cut up pretty bad right there. I'm actually amazed the Knights even managed to hit him, given how completely and utterly forgettable he is. My god, it's the big bad, it's the villain, it's the one who's been plotting this all along. Who could it be? Who could be as devious and powerful enough to pull something like this off? Also, how did they get from the stadium to all the way up in the bleachers in the blink of an eye? I'm not sure about that. Oh, come on, Shizuku. You are not this dumb. You are not this freaking dumb. Run for it. Run for it. Yep, she got stabbed. She got stabbed by the person who was very obviously being brainwashed and controlled. Ooh, right in the back. That is A powerful blow. I mean, I saw it coming. It was very obvious she was being controlled. It's Eri! Eri was the villainess all along! Who'd have thunk it? I mean, obviously I thunk it. Obviously, I read a light novel, I knew this was coming. Though the light novel made it very obvious for this moment that she was in fact the villainess. Heck, it put her on the freaking cover of this volume! And then afterward, the author's like, oh, I wanted to surprise fans by putting Eri on the cover because they wouldn't know who it was, which I guess works for light novel readers, but I'd already seen the first season of the anime, so I already knew what Eri looked like, so when I saw, her on the cover, I'm like, oh, she's the villain, obviously. Though even before that, it was fairly obvious she was the bad guy, she was the one working with Hayama. I mean, in volume 4 of the light novel, when they're fighting against the demon, Eri used a magic that she had never used before because it made her feel icky, and yet even the narrator said, oh wow, isn't it impressive that Eri was able to use this magic so effectively, even though she'd never used it before? They were really making it pretty obvious that she was in fact the bad guy. And she removed her glasses to reveal how evil she really is. And utterly and completely psychotic. God, that is unnerving. That is seriously, seriously unnerving. I guess that's the end of the episode. Next episode, Betrayal. Well, I wonder who that could be about. I mean, maybe it's about the classmate who just literally stabbed all of her classmates in the freaking back. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, let's not forget, she's also working with Hayama, who also, is betraying everyone by working with her. So, yeah, this is a very, very bad situation for them. I mean, they've all, literally just been stabbed in the back, and they are bleeding to death basically on the ground while soldiers hold them down. So, there's not a whole lot they can do. And they're handcuffed, that's also something I forgot to mention. The handcuffs are actually imbued to make sure they can't actually activate any spells or use any of their skills. So yeah, they are utterly and completely helpless in this situation. I mean, the only relatively hopeful thing in all of this is the fact that Kaori and Lily were on their way to check on the students, before the whole demon invasion started, and they were in the castle when the first part of the barrier shattered. That's when Shizuku ran out of bed and got everyone together, so they should be fairly close. Though Kaori isn't really much of a fighter, especially compared to, Yui, Shia, and goddamn Hajime, who just killed a freaking angel. Oh, I love that man. I love that man. So, yeah, she might be able to land a helping hand, but she probably won't change the tide of battle all that much. But please, let me know down below. What'd you think of Hajime's big ultimate battle against Noint? What'd you think of Aiko murdering just so many religious people? I mean, she killed the Pope, she killed the Bishop, she killed the Knights. She killed dozens or hundreds of people. That's gotta leave a pretty heavy mark on her soul. I mean, seriously. I mean, she was willing to kill for the sake of her students, but not to this degree, not to this level. And, I mean, like I said, in the light novel, she vomited. She immediately vomited when she realized what she'd done. Oh, poor Aiko-sensei. All she wants is to protect her students, and she keeps suffering because of it. Oh, I love her though. I so love her. But please, let me know down below. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss my next video. And until then, peace!